Hello, welcome to my January recap or review or retrospective, whatever we want to call it. What I'm going to do today is actually talk through filling in a sort of overview page in my yearly notebook. But first, I never thought I would be like a candle person. In fact, I didn't want to be like a candle person. I always thought it seemed a little bit froofy, if I'm honest. But I was looking at the grocery store and I found this candle. It's lemon bar scented and it smells so good. And we've had this like pumpkin spice candle for a while because we just love pumpkin spice. And so I'm actually gonna do this whole thing where I light the candle and it's like running in the video, which I've never done before. It might be kind of cute, right? So this is kind of a new thing. Instead of doing reviews in my plan with me, I'm doing them as a separate video. So all I'm going to do is walk through my goals, what I did in January, how many of those goals I met, and like if I made some progress, how much progress did I make? So the first thing I'm going to do is actually look at my yearly goals. Here I've already checked off the things that I have completely finished. So none of these were top priority for January. I did start my first 10-week cut, which I'm right in the middle of right now, so that won't be done until mid-March. After 10 weeks, I published my first Skillshare course, did not start writing short stories, I did yoga 2 times, and I realized that I could easily fill this up like pretty quick, so I want to limit this to like at most twice a month. Like it really should be, instead of do yoga 24 times, it should be twice a month. So that if I do it like every week for the first month, I'm not like, 2 months done. I don't know if that makes sense, but that was sort of the intention with this, was to keep it regular throughout the year. So I'm only going to fill in 2 bubbles for each month, and then if I do extra, that's good, but I'm just not going to mark it down. And similarly, I'm using my cut, my like nutrition experiment as my first life experiment video, which is a little bit more like vloggy, like I changed my life in this way and here's what happened. I did do my 10 hours, which I'm going to fill in over here. Made progress on strength benchmarks, I'll talk more about those. Net worth 0, working towards that, things are looking good. And then I did also donate to charity. So the first thing I'm going to do is fill in numbers for this little section here. And for my game development work, I actually did 11.5 hours. My net worth is about negative 8,900 right now, which is a step in the right direction. It was about 10K at the beginning of the year, but it's hard to measure because depending on what time of month I look at it, it's a little bit different. So I'm trying to check at the end of the month after I've paid the mortgage, which it should be like kind of at its lowest point during that time. So that's what I'm going to try and stick to each month. I donated $156 to charity. And for the first month, I picked a local food bank that is very highly reviewed. Like it's been investigated by charity people who kind of see how effective charities are. And then over here, I am benching 60 pounds. I'm also squatting 60 pounds. And my deadlift is up to 65. And what we're going to see with these is that I'm going to make a lot of progress early because I'm going from like not lifting at all to lifting regularly, and I'm both finding my like strength level, and also when beginners start lifting, like they generally put on muscle much more quickly, so it should kind of go up immediately and then level out, and then when I do my bulk and I'm getting more energy, I should see more strength increases then as well. But a pretty good start. I'm pretty pleased with how this is going. And here we have the more involved things that I did. I did read 2 books, the 2 books in a series by N.K. Jemisin, the 5th season and the Obelisk Gate. I love them both, and I'm gonna read the 3rd one next because I can't stop. Would highly recommend those. None of them I think are really new releases. Even if I'm counting books that were released late last year, I don't think either of those would count. And then over here, I did do some 3D art. I mentioned this somewhere, I think in my February plan with me, but I've been feeling this kind of resistance, a little bit of fear almost about doing my 3D work. And so that's something I really want to push through in February and try to get past that that hump. I don't know what it is exactly. Meditation did not go great. I had a strong start and then I got really busy around here with work, and so I just didn't have time in the evenings to do it. Here's kind of interesting. You can see how when I started with the no sugar, no caffeine, I had headaches constantly for the whole first week of January. And then this is my normal state where I'm getting them a couple times a week. I know it's not good to get headaches all the time, but I do, and it's kind of interesting to see that they seem to cluster around the middle of the week. I don't know if that's related to something. It could be a symptom of my weird sleeping habits where I sleep very little during the week and then I sleep a lot on the weekend. So I'm already seeing some patterns here, which is nice. Currently inked didn't really change. And then here I'm gonna speed through a lot of this, but what I want to do is make sort of a dashboard for all my stats, the things I did and progress I've made. And then over here I want to do some sort of freeform journaling about how January went. And then I want to do this each month, and the idea is that I can just flip through these pages and see how my year went very much at a glance. So I think that'll be kind of nice. So I'm just gonna get started here with some fancy header. Not really fancy, shimmery header. And I did notice in my bullet journal, the daily one over here, that if I am not careful with this, it can bleed through the paper, which is kind of sad, but oh well. And I also wanted to put a note here. January is 1 month out of 12, and so that's about 8.3% of the way through the year. So just kind of keeping that in mind as I look at the progress I've made on these other things, I can see if I'm on par, if I'm a little bit behind, if I'm a little bit ahead, and how much I have to focus on each different thing for next month and all the months later. Here I'm going to put my focus, which was fitness or health, or even aesthetics, really. A lot of my fitness goals are based around aesthetics, which might seem shallow to other people, but you do you and I'll do me. And here I'm just gonna list a bunch of health stats that I'm either tracking intentionally or get tracked automatically by my Fitbit. So I have resting heart rate is what that first one stands for, average steps, average sleep at night, weight, number of times I did yoga, and then here I'm gonna put all the numbers I already put on that other page just for clarity's sake, so I'm not leaving anything out. And the idea here is that I want to do the sort of before and after for whichever ones it makes sense for. And then down here, for meditate and headaches, I just want to put the number, the total number. Since I wasn't really tracking this last month, it doesn't make sense to do a comparison. Alright, and I have all these numbers on a sticky note, just off screen. I went and got them before I did this, so I wouldn't be flipping through a bunch of apps and things while I was filming. And these ones here are all averages, so like resting heart rate wasn't like just at the 1st of January or something. Like it's the average of the previous month, and Fitbit actually gives me a report with all this, so I'm not like calculating it myself. Another thing to mention is that Fitbit calculates resting heart rate weird, where it will do the average heart rate the entire time you're asleep, rather than a lot of people say to take like the lowest heart rate like right before you wake up. So I think these numbers are a little bit high, but I also just have a bad heart. Like it's not bad in the sense that it's damaged, but my resting heart rate is usually high, and I think it's probably because I have never maintained any sort of cardio exercise habit. I'm just out of shape. I definitely need to be sleeping more, and I am getting a little bit better, like a couple of minutes on average more, but it's rough. Sorry if you can hear the dog barking in the background. It's a neighbor, and it's very warm in this room right now, and so I can't close the window. Alright, and most of my workouts, I started with just the bar. I use a barbell with the weight plates to do my workouts in order to get a feel for like how strong I am at this point and like start easy. So this month, whoops, I put these in the wrong order. This should be 55 and this should be 45. I'll fix it with some whiteout later, but we're gonna see a pretty big jump for this first month as I figure out where I'm at. And like I said, the progress is gonna slow down a little bit over time, and that is okay. On to here, I did meditate 5 times for a total of 110 minutes. And I got 14 headaches, which was not great. And I left a space over here for a little bit of journaling. Next up, I've made a section for money goals. So things like net worth, charity donations, and I put in my game company hours here because in theory that time should eventually be profitable. Like it should eventually be a source of income. That's a long ways off, but you know, I wasn't quite sure where else to put it. And these numbers we already know. I don't actually have like a before number for this from the start of the year. I could probably dig that up if I go back through my records, but right now I'm just not worried about it. This is what it is now, which is the most important number for me at this moment. And then below here is where we get into the more nitty-gritty goals, books read, 3D models created. And then down here I just want to put some accomplishments. It's like a little highlight for, hey, I did this in the month of January. And this might be kind of like overkill to rewrite them all here, but I still think it would be nice to have just a little recap of all this stuff. And then I made note of a few accomplishments from January. The biggest one is I published my second Skillshare course. So that is up, so you can go ahead and take that course if you want to. It is a sequel to my first one, which is also on Skillshare, so both of those are available to premium members. And if you use my link, you can get, I think, 2 months free for Skillshare. I could be wrong, but 2 months should be plenty of time to do both if you have wanted to learn web development that's a little bit more involved than just like HTML and CSS. We've also been developing a new idea for a game with our game company. So I'm gonna just put in here developing new game idea. We're still very early on, so I don't really want to talk about it yet. And then my last accomplishment was that I did maintain a very strict nutrition plan, and I did it. Like, I didn't really slip up. I didn't miscalculate. Like, I predicted that following this meal plan would result in a certain amount of weight loss, and it did. I'm pretty pleased with what's happening. The numbers all seem to match up, which is my favorite thing, when the numbers match up. Alright, and the last thing I want to do here is put percentages next to the things that I have like numerical goals for. So my weights here, like I mentioned, they're gonna be pretty high right now because of that big boost. And the way that I've calculated these percentages is I've taken my goal, my 100 pounds, 100 pounds, 90 pounds goals for these 3 lifts, and I've subtracted my starting amount, and then the amount I have increased is then divided by that amount. I don't know if this makes sense. I'll put a equation somewhere and see if that helps explain it. But pretty good start. Good head start on those goals. I got 100% of my yoga in that I wanted to get. Well, I should have done that differently. Oh well. Cross that out. I got 100% for the month, but I was tracking these for the whole year, so that should just be 8.3% since it's exactly how much. But I'll fix it in post, as they say. I didn't actually calculate a percent for my net worth because I didn't have that starting value. I might go back in later and try and figure out a number for that. My charity is at 7.7%, so I'm a little bit behind because budgets were pretty tight this month, but I'm hoping with the plan that I have that I'll be able to do more charitable donations later. And this is right spot on. Exactly how much. I'm not going to count excess because I don't want to build up hours. I want only 10. If I hit 10, that's a check mark for each month. As far as books go, I'm a little bit behind because these are both pretty long books, and also when I was figuring out my number of books per month, I took the lower number because it is a decimal, because when you divide 30 by 12, it is a decimal. So a little bit low this month, and then I'll do hopefully 3 books next month to kind of catch up that decimal point. Same thing with 3D models. I'm a little bit behind now, but I hope to pick up steam a little bit. So I'm going to do some journaling here and then just voice over how I feel about the month. So I'm feeling really good about this month. I feel like I had a focus. I focused on fitness, and I accomplished that and all the pieces of the other goals that I wasn't really focusing on, but they just needed a little bit of work. This idea of focusing on one thing and then kind of just doing the bare minimum for everything else, it seems very similar to the happiness project that I couldn't quite get working last year. And I think the reason is because I am taking things sort of 1 month at a time. And I think that's the biggest difference between this year and last year as to why I'm feeling so much more optimistic. Now, if you remember my flip through from last year, you'll know I did do very well in January. I had that same energy. I did very well. And then things started to slowly go downhill. So I could just be a little bit optimistic right now, and this success that I'm seeing and feeling could also go away this year. It might not work out how I think it will, but I'm still feeling pretty good. I've looked ahead a little bit. I have an idea of where all my big projects can go. It's all still written in pencil, so to speak. I can work out the specifics later, and everything's gonna be okay. I think the biggest challenge going forward is going to be the money goals. We already had a couple of surprise expenses pop up, which always happens. If you own a home like I do, it really is quite mind-boggling, like how much there is to pay for. And when you own a home and you also have pets, there's just another piece of uncertainty that you have to worry about. Like, you have to have money to take them to the vet when they need to go to the vet. Like, there's no moral alternative, right? Like, I'm responsible for these small furry creatures, and so I need to take that responsibility. And I'm also responsible for the house that we all live in. And sometimes things break, and some of it you can predict and some of it you can't. So money, I think, is going to be the biggest challenge. We have already been approached by a neighbor to replace another fence. If you've been watching since last fall, you'll know that we got a new fence, and it was very expensive, and that particular situation was also fraught with neighbor drama. This new situation shouldn't be. It's all very, like, friendly, and, like, we both want to replace the fence rather than just one of us. So I don't expect that to be, like, an emotional drain like that other thing was, but overall, like, things are expensive, and it's very difficult to predict what's going to come up. So staying on the ball, saving when I can, paying down debt really as quickly as possible so we're not paying any more in interest is going to be super important. And I think I've got a really good start on that this year. I also feel like I've got a good routine going as far as, like, reading and just the cadence of work that I'm doing. When I set big goals like this, it's my nature to just work all the time, and that's not something I can do. It's not something anyone can do. But I found my commute is a great time to get reading in, and it's pretty long, so I can get a lot of reading in. And it also lends itself to, like, fitness. Like, I can walk for 30 minutes while reading a book. And then I have 2 goals checked off at once, which is great. And then I've been finding a space in the evenings to do work that needs a little bit more attention that I can't do, like while I'm cooking dinner or while I'm walking around. And that's when I've been doing 3D modeling and, like, working on game development stuff. Overall, the month of January has been very productive for me, but I don't feel like it's been a crunch, which certainly has happened in the past. So I think things are going good, and I'm pretty excited to get started on my goals for next month. I've already posted my plan with me for February, so you already know that I'm going to be focusing on writing next month. I'm going to be maintaining my fitness and health goals, focusing on writing, and then like in January, everything else is just going to stay bare minimum, do what I can when I can, but don't really worry about it. And so I'm hoping the end of February I come back and we see that I have done, like, all of this writing. I've made so much progress on my writing goals, and everything else is just kind of chugging along. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought in the comments, because it is a little bit different than the way I've done things in the past. I feel like it was a lot more chatty, a lot more, like, talking about feelings and goals, which I think is a big part of the journaling community, but maybe not a huge part of it. Like, I think we like to focus on the stationery and the layouts of the page and, like, what pens we're using. And so this was a little bit more chatty and casual, and I just want to know if you liked it. Thank you so much for watching this video. My next video will likely be my March plan with me, so don't forget to subscribe so you get notification of that. Thanks again, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!